Here's a number that should terrify you. According to King County prosecutors, a 13-year-old can be caught with a gun 5 separate times before facing any real consequences. Let me say that again. 5 times. And now those same kids aren't just carrying pistols. They're adding Glock switches that turn handguns into machine guns, spitting out 30 rounds in 2 seconds. It's like giving a toddler a chainsaw, except the toddler has gang connections and 0 adult supervision. The prosecutors say shootings are down 41% this year, which sounds great until you realize the kids who are still shooting have weapons that would make Rambo scared. These aren't your grandfather's Saturday night specials. We're talking about middle schoolers with military-grade firepower they bought online for $50. The latest data from the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office shows something rare these days: a real, measurable drop in shootings. In the first 3 months of the year, 60 people were shot in King County. That includes 13 people killed and 47 others wounded. Hold on. Let me make sure I heard that right. 60 people shot in 3 months and we're supposed to celebrate? That's like saying your house is only half on fire and calling it a victory. Don't get me wrong, I'll take good news where I can get it. But let's not throw a parade just yet. 13 people are dead, folks. 13 families destroyed. But hey, at least it's an improvement, right? That's the bar we've set. We're excited when fewer people get murdered. Compared to the same time last year, that is a 41% drop. It is the lowest level we have seen since before the pandemic. The county also saw a big dip in the total number of shots fired. Okay, I'll admit it. That's actually significant. A 41% drop in shootings? That's not just a statistical blip, that's real progress. But here's the thing that drives me crazy. We're comparing ourselves to pandemic levels of violence. It's like saying, well, we're not quite as bad as when society completely fell apart. The bar is so low, it's underground. Still, credit where it's due. Something's working. The question is, what exactly? And more importantly, can we keep it up? But while the trends are finally heading in the right direction, prosecutors say they are more alarmed than relieved. Because the shooters who remain are getting younger, the weapons are getting deadlier, and too often, it is the same kids showing up in the system over and over until one of those shots finally hits someone. And there it is. The other shoe drops. We've got fewer shootings, but the ones we're still seeing, they're being committed by children with military-grade firepower. That's not progress. That's a horror movie. These prosecutors aren't relieved because they know we're dealing with a smaller but infinitely more dangerous problem. It's like having fewer house fires, but the ones you do have are started with napalm. Same kids, same system, same revolving door. Except now they're carrying weapons that can level a city block. Gary Ernsdorf, senior prosecutor with the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, told Seattle's Morning News on Cairo News Radio, it is not just how many guns are on the streets, it's how they are getting there. These kids are not going to the store and buying them legally, Ernsdorf said. They are getting them through vehicle prowls and social media connections, and now we are seeing them adding Glock switches, turning these guns into fully automatic weapons. Vehicle prowls and social media? So let me get this straight. Kids are getting machine guns the same way they get concert tickets and stolen bikes, through Instagram DMs and car break-ins. That's our reality now. And Glock switches? For those who don't know, that's a device that turns a regular handgun into a fully automatic weapon. We're not talking about some complex military modification here. We're talking about a $50 piece of metal that turns a pistol into a submachine gun. Amazon for murder weapons. What could go wrong? For those unfamiliar, a Glock switch is a small device that can be added to a Glock handgun. With it, a pistol that normally fires 1 bullet per trigger suddenly unloads 30 rounds with 1 squeeze. And that is the kind of firepower prosecutors say they are seeing in the hands of 12 and 13-year-olds. 12 and 13-year-olds with 30-round bursts. I need everybody to sit with that for a second. These are kids who can't legally buy a rated R movie ticket, but they're walking around with weapons that would make Navy SEALs nervous. 1 trigger pull, 30 bullets, 2 seconds, in the hands of a 7th grader. You know what I was carrying in 7th grade? A calculator and anxiety about whether Sarah would notice my new haircut. These kids are carrying weapons of war, and we wonder why prosecutors are more alarmed than relieved. And if you think this Glock switch problem is exaggerated, just ask the crowd that scattered at last summer's Seafair Parade in Seattle's Chinatown International District. 3 kids, 2 14-year-olds and a 13-year-old, were arrested there with loaded guns. 2 of those guns had been modified with switches that made them fully automatic at Seafair, the family-friendly summer parade where people go to watch boats and eat funnel cake, and 3 teenagers showed up armed like they were storming Normandy. This isn't some gang initiation in a dark alley. This is broad daylight, families everywhere, kids running around with balloons, and a 13-year-old has a machine gun. The fact that this doesn't shock us anymore is maybe the most terrifying part of all. We've normalized children with automatic weapons at community events. What's next? Metal detectors at Little League games? The teens had gang connections, according to prosecutors. They weren't kept in custody long. Why? Because under current Washington law, they hadn't yet been caught with a gun 5 separate times, the threshold for any mandatory long-term consequence. 5 times. Let me say that again. 5 times. A child can be caught with a gun 5 separate times before facing real consequences. That's not a justice system. That's a loyalty card at Subway. Buy 4 illegal guns, get the 5th one free. These kids brought machine guns to a family parade and got sent home with ankle bracelets. I'm sure that'll teach them. Maybe they'll think twice before bringing their rocket launchers to the next bake sale. These switches are illegal. They're classified as machine guns under federal law, but you can buy one online for $50 or print one with a 3D printer in your garage. That's how a kid with no permit and no training can turn a pistol into a weapon that spits out 30 rounds in under 2 seconds. $50. That's less than a nice dinner, less than a tank of gas, less than most video games these kids are playing. And you can 3D print them? Great. So now, every tech-savvy teenager with access to YouTube and a library printer can manufacture automatic weapons. We live in an age where you can download murder. The same technology we use to make phone cases and action figures is being used to turn handguns into machine guns. Steve Jobs probably didn't envision this when he dreamed of putting technology in everyone's hands. To be clear, these are not legally owned guns being misused by their owners. In nearly every case, these are guns that were stolen, trafficked, or handed off through underground networks. Still, prosecutors say responsible gun owners have a role to play in fixing the problem. Properly stored firearms are more difficult for these kids to get their hands on, 𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗃 said. And here's where I have to give credit to the prosecutor for being honest. This isn't about demonizing legal gun owners now as these weapons are being stolen or trafficked. But there's a simple truth here. If you leave your gun in your car at the mall, you might as well gift wrap it for the nearest gang member. Gun safes exist for a reason, people. Trigger locks aren't just suggestions, because every unsecured firearm is a potential machine gun in the hands of a middle schooler with $60 in internet access. That is how many times a juvenile can be arrested for having a gun before they can be sent to a youth rehabilitation facility. It's 5 times, 𝗧𝗠𝗃 said. And yes, we find that frustrating. That is why prosecutor Lisa Mannion asked for a change in the law this year. The bill didn't go anywhere in Olympia, but we plan to try again. So it's not even that prosecutors don't see the problem. They're literally begging the legislature to let them do something about kids with guns. But Olympia said no, because apparently 5 strikes isn't enough. Maybe they're holding out for a baker's dozen? The prosecutor is standing there saying, please, let us stop children from carrying machine guns before they kill someone. And the state legislature is like, nah, let's give them a few more chances. At what point do we admit our system is broken beyond repair? Gary 𝗧𝗠𝗘 doesn't deal in slogans or silver linings. He lays it out plainly. When you give a 13-year-old a Glock modified to fire 30 rounds in 2 seconds, it's almost impossible to control. The intended target might not get hit, but someone else will, and that's the math that should terrify every parent in King County. When a 13-year-old pulls that trigger, they're not just shooting at their intended target, they're firing into a neighborhood, into apartments, into playgrounds. 30 bullets, 2 seconds. Zero control. The laws of physics don't care about your gang beef when those bullets start flying. They're going through walls, windows, whatever's in the way, someone's grandmother watching TV, some kid doing homework, some family having dinner. They all become potential casualties because we let children play with weapons of war. Maybe that's the conversation we should be having instead of debating whether 5 arrests is enough. So here we are, celebrating a 41% drop in shootings while middle schoolers roll up to family parades with automatic weapons. That's like throwing a party because your house is only half on fire. We've created a system where 13-year-olds get more chances with machine guns than most adults get with speeding tickets. 5 strikes and you're still not out? That's not criminal justice. That's a participation trophy for terrorism. The prosecutors are literally begging for help while Olympia plugs its ears. So let me ask you this. How many bullets does a kid have to fire before we admit our priorities are completely backwards? Drop your thoughts below. And if you think this is as insane as I do, maybe share this with someone who still believes the system works. Because at this rate, we'll be discussing rocket launchers at the next PTA meeting.